Hey everybody, this is Mike with Free Roaming Photography, and today I'm talking to you about how to do Yellowstone National Park if you only have one day to do it. In truth, Yellowstone really needs more than a day to see all of it properly, but I get that sometimes schedules just don't allow that for a variety of reasons, and so here we are. So if you really only have one day to do Yellowstone, then here are my recommendations, regardless of which entrance you're staying near. Just a quick reminder, though, that I do offer private photography workshops and photo tours in both Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. So if you'd like me to show you the area while giving you plenty of photography instruction, as well as information on the history, the geology, the ecology of the region, then be sure to check out the link in the description for more information on that. So regardless of where you're staying from, you're going to want to get an early start. Traffic can start getting backed up later in the morning and the early afternoons when the majority of people are out, and that can definitely slow you down and cost you time accessing features that you might actually want to see. Likewise, in order to make sure you see the most prominent and the defining features of Yellowstone, you'll want to make sure you have some extra time padded in your day. There's also no really easy way to slice it. It's going to be a long day, but done properly, it's going to fly by and you will have a lot of fun doing it. So first, let's take a look at the map of Yellowstone. What you'll notice is that the entire road system in Yellowstone makes a rough figure eight, and there are 5 different roads branching off of that to access each of the 5 different entrances. If you're coming in from the west entrance, the south entrance, or the east entrance, you're really going to want to focus primarily on the southern loop only. The reason being is that the southern loop is just flooded with beautiful thermal features, and there's really only a few other features on the northern loop, and trying to access those will just eat up way too much time in the day. Also along the southern loop, there's the 3 main features that I always tell people they have to see if they're going to see Yellowstone. In no particular order, first is Old Faithful, second is Grand Prismatic Spring, which you can see from multiple ways, which I have another video that documents that, and then the third is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River. Like I said, you don't have to see them all in that order, you just have to see them. The shortest commute to the southern loop in Yellowstone National Park will be originating from the west entrance in West Yellowstone, Montana. This is a roughly 30-minute drive, depending on how many stops you make along the way, with a lot of nice scenery along the Madison River. While coming in from the south of the east entrances will be roughly about an hour and a half each, coming from Jackson and Cody, respectively. For me, the most scenic route is coming in from Jackson and accessing the south entrance. The reason being is that you drive through an entirely separate national park in Grand Teton National Park to get there. So this gives you 2 national parks in one day. But I also live here, so I might be biased. In any case, the drive in from any of those sources is wildly scenic. As mentioned, from the west entrance, you'll be driving along the Madison River, where you get beautiful views of the river, some nice scenic drives along it, and frequently bald eagles, bison, and elk are spotted along the route in. From the south entrance, if you didn't already see wildlife in Grand Teton National Park, you might see elk prior to reaching the southern loop. And then you're also going to see the beautiful Lewis Canyon, the Lewis Falls, and the Lewis Lake, which is the 3rd largest lake in Yellowstone. These are, of course, all named after Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark Party, who never stepped foot in Yellowstone. From the east entrance, you get an incredibly scenic drive up the Shoshone River as you drive into desert mountains that gradually get more and more forested as you approach the Yellowstone Plateau. Once inside the park, you could see some bighorn sheep as you're ascending up the Absaroka Mountains and up to Sylvan Pass before dropping down to Yellowstone Lake. And of course, the lake itself is remarkably beautiful, and often bison are seen along that route as well. Now, once you access the loop, going clockwise or counterclockwise is entirely up to you. The only interesting factor that I can tell you that might sway your decision one way or another is that starting in early to mid-August, you might start to see a rainbow in the mist of Old Faithful if you catch an afternoon eruption. This is a nice little extra touch if you happen to be able to catch Old Faithful at that time. Aside from that, there's no right or wrong way. As mentioned, the 3 main sites you want to see are Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic Spring, and the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River. Leaving early and hitting those 3 will leave you plenty of time to have a nice relaxed lunch, and it'll also spare you enough time to add an extra highlight or 2 along the way. If you're coming in and out of the west entrance, the extra site you'll want to consider in this case is the Norris Geyser Basin. It's about a half-hour drive north of the Madison Junction where you'll head back to West Yellowstone from, and it features some remarkable thermal features, including Steamboat Geyser, which happens to be the tallest geyser in the world, and it's also the hottest geyser basin in the park. If you're staying in Jackson and you're heading out the south entrance, the extra feature you might want to see in this case is the West Thumb Geyser Basin, right there at the junction of the spur road that leads out to the south entrance. This is a really beautiful geyser basin which features plenty of thermal features actually lining Yellowstone Lake. It makes for a really unique setting with some really stunning sights. Along the way out on that route, you can also check out Moose Falls, which round trip is less than a quarter of a mile, and it just leads to this beautiful 30-foot waterfall tucked away in the forest, and it's right off the road, so it's definitely worth doing. If you're staying in Cody or somewhere out the east entrance, your extra stop could either be extended time in the Hayden Valley, where you can potentially find some exciting wildlife opportunities, or also the Mud Volcano area, which features some massive mud pots along a trail that's only about a mile long. Likewise, on your way out that way, there's also some beautiful trails along Yellowstone Lake, so you can stretch your legs there, as well as places to get out and stretch along Sylvan Lake and Sylvan Pass. So those are the southern loop entrances, but what if you're staying in Gardner at the north entrance or near Cook City for the northeast entrance? Either way, you're still going to want to access that southern loop and hit those three main spots. You'll also be looking at a similar commute time to the southern loop as you would be if you were staying in Jackson or Cody, roughly an hour, hour and a half to get there. If you're staying in Gardner, Montana, and you're accessing the north entrance, you'll probably want to see Mammoth Hot Springs as your extra stop. Of course, if you are staying in Gardner, Montana, you could potentially squeeze that into the day before or the day after, since it is so close to the town. This would allow you a little bit of extra time to see another feature along the southern loop, as opposed to rushing back to pretty much where you're staying anyway. There aren't really that many thermal features between Mammoth Hot Springs and the southern loop, so unless there's an exciting wildlife opportunity, it's more just of a lengthy but still very scenic drive between the two. If you're coming in and out of the northeast entrance, I would recommend skipping Mammoth Hot Springs because it's just too far out of the way, unless of course you can work it into another day somehow. In this case, again, do the southern loop and the three main features, but on your way back, you'll want to save some time for Tower Falls, which is along the way up to Mount Washburn and Dunraven Pass. You may or may not have time to do Mount Washburn, but keep in mind on your way in and out, you'll also be passing through the Lamar Valley, which is nicknamed the Serengeti of America. Here you might get some fantastic opportunities with wolves or bears or moose or really anything else there, both on your way in and out, which could potentially eat up some time, but it'll be well worth it. So as you can see, there's plenty to do and see in Yellowstone, and really that's why it takes more than a day. But I get it. Sometimes you only have a day, and that's why I put this guide together. So just a reminder, I do offer private photography workshops and photo tours in Yellowstone National Park. So if you'd prefer that I do the worrying about the timing and the driving, there's a link in the description where you can check out more information. And along the way, I will give you plenty of information about the area as well as photography instruction if you'd like. And if you found this useful, please feel free to like and subscribe for plenty more tips. Any other questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. And thank you for watching and happy trails.